Okay, great. So thanks for joining us, Matt. We're just going to go through a few things today in terms of the private sector procurement. I know your background is that kind of thing. So you just want to give us a brief summary of your current role and what you've done in the past?
Yeah, so good to meet you. And I think I suppose, like you say, just as introduction, so my current role, I work for a company called Seeker, a large private sector construction company, head of procurement for the UK. So in terms of that role, we have 5 production locations around the UK producing a mix of different construction related products. And my role is to manage all the sort of the spend, third party spend across the business for materials, traded products, packaging, and also indirect spend. So we have a lot of investment projects, the sort of day-to-day operation spend that we need to do to keep the plants running. Things like IT, marketing, all them types of areas. So there's a big range. We've sort of got a team of category managers, based across the country managing that. Before I joined Seeker, I spent 10 years in automotive. I was at Leyland Trucks for 7 years as an OEM, sort of automotive manufacturer. So that involved buying a lot of truck parts, and that was split by category. So I managed a certain amount of the spend of each vehicle, basically. And that role was heavily focused on like strategic procurement, consolidating spend, trying to leverage the supply chain, having the right suppliers and sort of quality was king really there. The last 3 years in automotive, I worked at a company in Liverpool called Magna Exteriors. So that was a level down in the supply chain, making plastic exterior parts for companies like Jaguar Land Rover, Bentley, Nissan. And then prior to that, I started my career in aerospace. So I worked for BAE Systems in the Northwest. And that role was a 2-year commercial graduate scheme. So it was a bit of estimating, contract negotiating and procurement. And I went into a procurement role after that graduate scheme. And sort of stayed there for a few years once I graduated and then moved into automotive after that.
Well, that's really good. And I think I know we mentioned before that your previous roles have been really focused on like quality and traceability in the supply chain as well. You say that's sort of giving you a keen eye for really focusing in on that, and
Yep.
It is a crucial element of what you've done in the past.
Yeah, the standards were so high and the expectations of performance were so high that cost was crucial when you're looking at volume and trying to make margin for the company, but the cost of a quality issue was always outweighed taking 1 or 2 or 3% out of the price, because recalls, when you're producing vehicles, you've got recall programs and they cost millions if you have to go full into a full one of those. So from my point of view, especially through the automotive experience, that day-to-day quality focus was really critical. And I think even aerospace, that was almost a given. If the quality standard wasn't to the highest level, you weren't even having any discussion. So I think aerospace, almost you took it for granted that the quality was there. But automotive, it really was, you had to develop it, you had to demand it. And if you couldn't prove track record of quality, it was very hard to get through the door, really.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It does. Okay, so I think if we just move on to, there's been a few topics that we'd like to cover, really. In your experience and your sort of past roles, if there is a single reason, what is the main reason that you wouldn't take a proposal seriously?
Yeah, I think it's hard to find a single one, but I think, if you're looking at what's the top of the list, for me, it's engagement. So, and this covers a lot of things. So the full end-to-end engagement from a supplier, if we don't feel that that's at the level we want it, then regardless of what the proposal says, we almost have already decided that we don't think that they might be able to see it through or deliver what they're saying. and it falls into a number of areas. So for me, it's how easy is it to get hold of the right people? Is the proposal submitted on time? Is the right detail there? Are they showing the right level of understanding of our requirements? And again, that is about the engagement. If you're not engaging properly and taking the time to understand what we're asking for, then that doesn't come back in the proposal. The quality of the proposal, and for me, again, that's from the level of engagement that you have between you. Most suppliers need to ask the right questions and to go through the right things before you can be able to submit a quality proposal back to the business.
Yeah.
And actually, taking the engagement right to the end, we like to see suppliers that come with suggestions, over and above. So if something's not right, if we've asked a question that they say, well, in our expertise, in our capability, we're almost the supplier from our point of view in that little niche product area is the expert. They've got the knowledge and expertise. If they're not suggesting you could do it slightly better this way, or this is what you're asking for, but why don't you ask for this? We really appreciate that type of feedback. Is we're the experts, and this is what we think you need, but we can deliver what you're asking for. And I think that is all about engagement.
Yeah,
we've seen it before where suppliers will, they're obviously got a bigger picture, perhaps want something in the future, but they don't want it now. They'll play the game, they'll talk to you, but you can tell they're not really listening to what you're saying. They're not really understanding what you need, and you get a proposal that is cobbled together, from a load of copy and pastes, and you can tell that it's not a genuine response to your requirement. So, we always look at the level of engagement that we get, especially if it's a big tender, got high profile, internally important result for the business. If we don't get the right engagement, then we won't even take it forwards.
Yeah.
And then, maybe to add a couple of other points, financial status is critical for us. We want to understand the long-term stability of the company that we're talking to. If we're going to nominate, if you look at automotive and aerospace as industries, once you're locked in, it's often a long-term contract because you've got to go through a validation and approval. So we need to understand the risk. What is the risk of awarding that contract to a certain supplier without an open and transparency around the finances? It is hard sometimes to assess the risk.
Yeah.
And as another point we watch out for is the sort of crazy pricing, high and low. We've seen it where we know suppliers are capable of doing it, but maybe they're full at the moment, got capacity issues, and they just put a high bid in. If you want to pay the price, we'll do it, but we don't really want it. And we prefer them just to say, if you don't, if you can come to us and make a proposal, then it should be competitive, and you should be able to see it through. If you don't want to bid, just tell us, be open with us, tell us why, and we can talk about it.
Yeah.
And we often see it the other way. If we see proposals that come in too low and we know it's not priced correctly, and we don't accept it because we've seen it in the past where a supplier loses money or they won't deliver, and then the price starts creeping up. So we want to make sure it's in that sweet spot of value for money. It's proven to be value for money. It's competitive, but it's not too high or too low, because either way you end up having to recover the situation after. So sort of long-winded answer, but that engagement and understanding is crucial. But finances and pricing, are really important to make sure it's correct.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense, and it's interesting about the aspect you said about them submitting an intentionally higher price bid, when really that should be in their sort of bid no bid process at their side before they even get to that stage. And it's good to see that that's recognised, and you did intentionally pick a competitively priced bid, but neither one of the two extremes. But that's a really good answer, I think. I think that will help a lot of people. Across the businesses that you've worked with in your career over the years, are there any sort of common traits which you've looked for in the past from suppliers, or does it base it? I mean, you've just touched on it recently on the last reply, but it doesn't all come down to price? There are varying factors that influence that as well, aren't there?
Yes, I mean, I won't go into detail on it again, but that openness, that engagement, it if it's difficult to talk at the early stage, then you know, and that happens time and time again, then it's hard for that supplier, you know, to from my point of view, to really stay at the table. Beyond that, absolutely a track record or previous experience, especially in industries, automotive, aerospace, even, you know, construction. If you've got a good track record, you can prove your quality performance, and we've got a positive experience in the past, that counts massively. It doesn't close the door on new entrants, and we are always looking for reliable suppliers, you know, that mitigates risk, and we can sort of compete on price. But if you can prove you've got a good track record in the product that you make or the service that you offer, then that is really important. And over time, you build up that knowledge of certain suppliers in certain areas, of who does deliver what they say and who doesn't. So if you are a new entrant into that space, or it's the first time you're bidding on something, you have to be able to prove it, case studies, references. You know, we're prepared to go and speak to people and get an understanding. But really, the track record of delivering quality is crucial. Another thing we look for is the expertise and capability within, and from my point of view, it's what value can we get from that. So if a supplier is making a certain product, then they should really know that inside out. That's their core capability. It might be a small area for us, but their core capability, and we want to know that they can demonstrate that they've got resource available, and that they will use that capability to help us in what they supply to us. Value for money is important. So, you know, like I said, it's about being competitive, and it's about being open. You know, I got used to in automotive, when you ask for cost breakdown, you got it, because a lot of it was driven by the OEMs in terms of price and transparency. So we had to demonstrate transparency all the way up the chain, and there was certain allowable margins that you could make and things. So it was quite controlled in certain areas. So we always ask, sometimes in different industries, you know, it's a bit more closed book. But from my point of view, if you can be open, if you can prove how you're breaking down the cost, and how you're trying to maintain as much competitiveness in your cost base as possible, then that really helps. And again, we build relationships with suppliers where we can have these open discussions. Strong systems, you know, if we know a supplier's got really good financial system, really good quality system, and that really helps. And that really helps in terms of success at a tender. There's certain times we require accreditation, so obviously that becomes a yes/no type thing. But if it's automotive, there's a certain standard everyone has to meet. If it's construction, there are certain ISO standards. So obviously, having the ability to demonstrate those and talk about those is crucial. And then sort of more recently, really, we are transitioning to this like responsible sourcing approach, and it's a big thing for us at Seeker right now. You know, ethics, morals, sustainability, and sort of general compliance are really going to be factors in our decision making. You know, I would say not that they haven't been in the past, but it's now actually a big chunk of the weighting in a lot of our decisions. So we've probably been talking about it for a while, but we are now genuinely making decisions based on these things. We have a certain standard we expect, and suppliers now need to really be able to demonstrate this more than they ever have. So, you know, if you looked at one of the things that differentiates a supplier for us now, it's in that area. You know, have you got a good sustainability strategy? How do you manage all the compliance things? There's a lot of, you know, especially construction, a lot of materials that go on the banned list every year. That the list of things we can't use gets longer and longer. We have to find alternatives, and you know, if supply chains on top of compliance, on top of sustainability, then the innovations and the new ideas come to you earlier than if they did when you're dragging it out of people. So I think that's really important for us at the moment. And I suppose, just to answer your final question, it doesn't come down to price. I mean, there's a limit. I mean, it has to be competitive, and we wouldn't purposely select a higher price for no reason. I mean, the way we look at it is we want to select the lowest technically viable solution. That's the way we word it at Seeker. So if it's technically viable, it meets the specification, meets all our requirements, then cost can be the differentiator. But if we've got someone that's a bit more expensive, but they've delivered a really good project on time and on budget before, that counts more than a few percent price difference, because we know the risk costs more than the price in that case. So it's not all down to price, but it is a massive part of that because, all our KPIs are driven by cost, so, the more you spend, the worse it affects your KPIs at the end of the day. So you have to balance it. We need to be able to deliver the solution at the lowest cost we can.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense, and I think it's focusing on sort of value and the whole what the supplier can offer as a whole rather than the bottom line.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. No,
I think
that's
that is more and more important, because of the stuff we said about ethical sourcing and things.
Yeah.
If they don't have the policies in place, they haven't invested the time in this, and some suppliers might not see the value that they can immediately generate from it. But over time, it will definitely be such an important thing that it needs to be demonstrable.
Yeah, yeah, and it's only going to become, like you say, it's only going to become more of a factor in the coming years as well, with growing pressure for carbon efficiency, for
Exactly.
locally sourced supply chain, everything like that. We'll deal with it. Obviously, the majority of what Thornton Lowe deals with is public sector, but obviously there is crossover there. So totally get what you're saying there. When you have say a new supplier come to you, at Seeker, at your current role, and at your previous, really, have you had a common document or a fixed document where suppliers can apply and they can put their credentials on, put their accreditations on? Is that the typical process for where you work?
Yeah. So we'd normally send out an RFI potentially to begin with. Depends on how big the tender is, or how well we know the supply base, and how many suppliers we want to go out to. So I guess from our point of view, in private sector, we don't have to publish anything. We can choose the list that we start with, but obviously accountability sits with me and my team to prove that we've got the right level of suppliers on the list to start with. So we normally start with a long list, and we always try and put new vendors into the list. So we'll start with the ones we know, and we'll expand it so that we're giving other people the chance. Especially if you're locking it in for 2 or 3 years, we want to give everyone the chance to put some on the table. So we would normally do an RFI to a long list. And then it's just understanding that how they're capable of doing what we want. Then we would down select and then we would expect them to do a self-assessment questionnaire, which is more detailed. So that is more about accreditations. There's a section on financials, capability, knowledge, expertise, business setup, systems. So everything we care about, we've already got in a sort of, and that's a self-assessment. So it's sort of down to the supplier to decide how much of it to fill in, and that's an indicator on that level of engagement. If they're really keen, and you get a good detailed questionnaire. If they can't even fill that questionnaire in properly, it doesn't bode well for the relationship in the future. So giving good, solid information at that early stage is crucial. We would then sort of final, a down selection with an RFQ would come, and then what we try and do is give a common feedback. So we try and have a template to give feedback to suppliers after, whether they're successful or not. Normally more than so to the non-successful ones, because the one that is successful, it's easy to give direct feedback in that way. But we try and at least give a standard set of feedback to all parties, so that one, they know that we're not trying to just do this. Sometimes you look like you're just testing it when you know who you're going to go with, and genuinely, if we run a tender, it's a genuine reason for that, and we are looking at our options, and we will choose the best solution. And we try and give standard feedback to the suppliers who aren't successful, because we want them to want to come back to us in the future. And it might be that they were unsuccessful time 1, time 2, but the third attempt, that they did win, and it shouldn't be that eventually they get fed up of being in the process and never winning. So
that's it. Yeah.
That's probably the process in terms of selection. Then we have a very detailed audit sort of template where it's not really for the supplier to fill in pre-award, but we have a very detailed approach that once we're ready to select them, or we know that they're in the final two or something, we'll probably go out and do a full audit, and we've got a template for that as well.
Right. That when you say audit, sort of on-site audit of that supplier.
Yeah, on site.
Yeah.
Going through, every process internally that the manufacturing, all their functional support, the quality system, everything that we want to, to build a risk profile basically of that supplier. But we wouldn't go to that detail unless we were really sure that either they are the one we want, or it's down to the final two, and maybe this is the differentiator. If everything else is similar, the actual, what do we think of them when we look through the whole process start to finish, and how much risk do we see? That might be a differentiator.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's really good. Good information. And I think the main thing I sort of got from that is that you really start the decision process at that first stage when you're reviewing their engagement, like you started with really on your first answer, engagement. It's showing the willingness to make time to make a good application at that early stage, but that's already set in your head that this is a supplier that I could potentially work with because of the commitment, engagement, that sort of thing.
And we do sort of a scoring matrix for our tenders, so we make sure the business is happy with the criteria, that the criteria is set, and that it's weighted, and this whole engagement, capability, expertise element of it is in our criteria, and we do score it. So it's not just a gut feeling, it's genuinely something we assess. How have we found the engagement, how much of the capability has been demonstrated, how much of the track record is proven to us, and all that is down to how open you are at the start in terms of what you're willing to share, because sometimes all you've done is speak to an account manager for an hour or two to get an overview, and your confidence hasn't been formed really yet. So the more that you get in this process, the more confident you can be that they can deliver.
And I guess that really leads us on quite nicely to what I was planning to ask next around like new suppliers. How do you normally find that they actually engage with you? Is it sort of from a research that they've done on their side, or events, networking, meet the buyer events, all those kind of things? I know they're tools that we have and we deal with when our clients, when we speak to them. Just wondering what the typical situation would be for you guys.
Yeah, so multiple ways. I think previous contacts and knowledge does count for a lot, and proven technical performance is massive for us. We have an approved vendor list, so we try and encourage our business to, we've got a set of vendors that we've validated and approved, so try and use them if we can, benchmark with them. When we run tenders, we'll try and look at whether we've got the right partners on that list or not. But a lot of what we do is down to previous experience and previous performance. We also have a lot of global relationships, so Seeker's a Swiss company. It's got plants in every country of the world. It's got products all over the world, so we get a lot of sort of global relationships that we've got access to. So again, it would be benchmarked and we would be tendered, but a lot of suppliers that we deal with, we've been put in touch with through that they've done a good job in other countries or other areas of the business. And again, it's almost an internal reference for that type of thing. I would say internet-based research and trade shows for sure do give us some good contacts. We've found new packaging suppliers, we've found sort of certain, probably not, I would say, the sort of technical raw materials that we buy for certain products, that is long-term relationships that drive that development. But a lot of suppliers where they've got a core capability, looking at what's out there. Trade shows is a good one for us. There's certain construction trade shows, supply chain events and things where we find vendors that we've not dealt with before and start the discussions from there. We might put the name on the list of the next tender because we met them at a trade show and saw initially what they're about. Give them, again, gives the chance for both parties to assess each other further at the next opportunity. To be honest, very, very minimal through advertising. I think it's not the industries that I've worked in. It's not really advertising related selections. I think, definitely sort of networking, trade shows. Previous relationships, global relationships. Often our customers give us contacts and requirements. In the automotive industry, a lot of suppliers are directed, down the supply chain. You need to use this supplier for this product because that's what we've approved on certain vehicle range or things like that.
Right.
So I think, probably always looking for new ways to do it, but we have done some Meet the Buyer events in the past and they've been successful. We've done events where, say we've done a new product launch and we're going out for, got multiple tenders that run at the same time. We've got everyone together and done a product launch and a demonstration of the product and given everyone the same information at the same time.
Okay. Yeah.
So sort of, product demos, product reviews, sort of supplier type conferences. We've done that. But I suppose that only works for us on big projects, big spends.
Okay.
So multiple ways really. I think, if we're looking at it now, after so many years of doing it, a lot of it is experience related, knowledge related, and previous performance, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely there's a similar kind of thing with our clients. There's definitely elements of prior performance and existing relationships and that kind of thing. But from the industries that you've worked in, I think you've dealt with quite a lot of niche manufacturers that there's not really, they have to satisfy such a high standard to even get there that there's not really a lot of competition. But with the lower end stuff, maybe the kind of suppliers that most businesses would use, that they need a product that they sell. It'd be contacting you, meeting you at a trade show or a meet the buyer event or so that kind of thing still does work. Yeah,
for sure. And I think we often it doesn't necessarily work, but we do get people just ringing us up and sometimes they catch us at a good time when we need something that's on offer and we thought, actually we've not heard of your company before, or we've heard of you but we've not spoke to you. So some of those things do spark a discussion. The one thing we've not really approached yet is sort of e-tenders, and we do want to do it, especially for what you say, what we call is perhaps tail spend or spend where it's off the shelf type products or easy to change, where cost is important, and we can really get the sort of bids back and compare them quite easily. I think it's definitely an area we're looking at over the next few years is being able to do that. And then you can open it to a wider network then if you're doing it in that way. So something probably we're a bit behind on, I would say, in our industry, but it's something we are looking at the moment.
Yeah, I think that it'd be really good for non-technical procurement and the like you said, the things that most businesses need to function. It's a good way to really go out to market and see what efficiencies and cost savings could be made that way. Great. I mean, finally, Matt, it's just a question on really a hypothetical. If you were if you had a business or you started a business and you were looking at winning contracts with clients or potential clients like yourselves, what steps would you take initially to sort of get the ball rolling?
Yeah, so you need to understand the business that you're dealing with. I think from my point of view, we're happy to provide that understanding. Sometimes it's hard to break or open the door for the first time, but once you've got past that first step, we're very willing to provide the information and ask as many questions as possible. If you want to propose, if you're about to do a proposal for us, or we want something from you, and we're not prepared to take the time to help you understand what we need, then the tender's not a serious tender.
Yeah.
So from our point of view, if a company is part of that process and they want to, even if they've not dealt with us before, we'll take the time to help them understand what we need.
Right.
And I think one thing I would recommend is try and find out what the criteria is and how it will be scored, because, you know, from our point of view, you know, in the private sector, we do provide that sometimes, and sometimes we don't. You know, it's almost down to us to decide how much information we give at that RFQ stage in terms of how we're going to assess it. Sometimes we give, and sometimes we don't, but if someone asks for it, we'll give it, because we want the best responses. So if we've got a criteria that's weighted in a certain way, then we want your answer to be as detailed and as complete as possible for the most important elements of our requirements. So, you know, I am surprised often with suppliers when they don't ask for understanding of criteria and weightings and things. And, you know, occasionally we don't want to share that because there's perhaps a reason why, but, you know, most of the time we're happy to be open, we're happy to share information. We want the best result, and you know, if we can prove to our business that we've got the best result, it's competitive, it's gone through a robust process, then that supply will be successful.
Yeah, it just comes back to the whole sort of transparency thing, doesn't it? And
just ask questions, you know. No questions is stupid, and the more people ask questions, the more we actually like it, I think, because we're surprised where we send an RFQ out, no one asks any questions, and then the response comes in and we go, well, that's not really what we want. You know, we sort of sometimes see this tender process where there's a bit of silence whilst we're waiting, and then we think, someone's asked loads of questions and someone's asked no questions, and we normally expect the better response to be from the one that's asked the questions.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's good to hear that, because I think there'd be potentially some people that are thinking of going down this process that would think by asking a question that you would be less credible. But it's, you know, we've had clients that have said that to us, and it's absolutely not the case. And you've backed that up with what you said, where you would rather have the question asked and have a more complete bid as a result of it than not. Right.
I think one of the things that's important to us is understanding of the business we're talking to. So, you know, if you as a business want to go and start making inroads into a certain area, or win some business in a certain industry, or with a certain customer, you know, I would say make sure that your business proposal, your value as a business, is clearly explained. You know, what do you offer, or the value that you have, or the expertise you've got, what case studies can you give us, what financial performance are you prepared to share, and make sure it's clearly laid out. And, you know, it doesn't even have to be tailored too much. If it's clear, this is our value, this is our strategy, this is our investment plan, this is the results we've had, these are our key customers, you know, it can be something that they only have to update once a year, I don't know, but having that value explained and clear does make a difference to us, because it probably helps us. It might not give us all the answers, but it helps us gain some sort of understanding, and we'll then follow that on with more questions. But if there's nothing, then the questions have to go back a stage and ask, well, have you actually done that before? What is your case study? What is your performance? Rather than top up questions, you know, with the baseline there. So if you're going into some of these, I would make sure that information is already sort of mapped out and clear and open and ready to go. I think timing's important. So if you want to be part of these processes, make sure you follow the timing, submit on time, make sure the response is professional. And one thing we always say, if you want extra time, just ask us. You know, there might be that we set a deadline for end of November, but we're not going to start reviewing them till middle of December. So if someone wants 2 weeks, we'll give everyone 2 more weeks. You know, just ask the question. Most times we can accommodate it, and if it's urgent, we'll tell you, and then you can decide if you want to submit a response or miss out. But there's no problem in asking. And I think, again, back to that engagement thing that I said at the start, if the discussion's going well, you're asking the right questions, and you need a bit more time to answer them, then we're happy with that.
Yeah, makes sense. Just a couple of things that I noted down during that really sort of caught my attention with it. When you're saying about the value proposition and making sure you've got, I mean, it's probably the same. We term them as sort of like standardized or boilerplate type documents. And like you say, they're probably updated maybe every 6 months, every year, but they contain your standardized information. And we work quite hard with some of our clients on our side to get them in place so that it means they're responsive when they have something that they want to, they want to crack on with it. You're not flapping around trying to find policies and back up your accreditations. You've got your case studies, you've got your CVs, everything's ready to go. And also really good to hear about the time element as well, and that is an option. Again, it's a bit of a grey area that I think some people don't like to ask, but it's good to hear that that's a consideration and not just a flat out rejection from that. So that's really good info. But great. No, well, really appreciate your time today, and hopefully that's provided everyone with a bit of experience from Matt and a bit of context for how to go about this kind of thing. So if anyone's got any questions, if you'd like to email us using the link below, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.